Good morning. Great to see you all. Whether you're joining us here in person or virtually, I welcome you into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Please join me in the responsive reading that I'm going to read in just a moment. It's authored by Anastasia Birush. It'll be projected on the chancel wall, I think, and your part will be the italicized portion. We'll see if it works here. Oh, no. Well, you know what? You get to hear me read the whole thing then instead of doing it.
So you do your part, I'll do their part.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I'm standing in for you all today. Just want to let you know. All right, you go.
All right. So you're going to be right there.
Yep.
Okay. We come together to lament with, celebrate with, and care for one another in our community and our world. Because we want to be here with one another, love is not only at the center, but also the opening that invites us to lament, celebrate, and care. Love invites us to honor our interdependence with all beings in the web of all existence.
Love invites us to envision a world where all are free from exploitation, and the smallest to the largest are protected and nurtured with care and respect.
Love invites us to revel in our uniqueness. It didn't have the accent in the right place. Love invites us to revel in our uniqueness using pluralism as our guide.
Love invites us to recognize all beings as sacred and celebrated. Our differences are appreciated and valued. All are equally sacred, regardless of culture, theology, or experience.
Love invites us to counter all forms of oppression with justice.
Love invites us to dismantle all forms of racism and systemic oppression. All people are worthy of thriving.
Love invites us to participate in our individual and collective transformation.
Love invites us to cultivate change so we may grow spiritually and ethically. We know that we are perfectly imperfect and never finish growing.
Love invites us to connect by opening our hearts to generosity.
Love invites us to willingly and thoroughly share our time, talent, and treasure. Our generosity connects us in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Love invites us to create inclusive, equitable communities.
Love invites us to know in our hearts that all people are inherently worthy and have the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion.
Love invites us to worship together.
So may it be.
My name is Dean Carr. I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you're visiting here today, I offer a special welcome. I invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. For those of you who are visiting us here today, the fellowship hall is out the doors and to your right. Also, nearby there is a newcomers table. They're near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. Welcome to you all this morning. We're glad you're here. We have no announcements here this morning at the moment, and unless you're aware of anything? No? And so it is time for us to begin our service.
Good morning. Did you hear me? Can you hear? Am I on? There I am. Okay. It wasn't coming back to me. I just want to note that we have many of our folks are away at Quimper camp today. So if it seems a little less full, then just know that they're having a blast off wherever they are. Camping. Our opening words by Katie Romano Griffin. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passions, and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space present to the beloved companions that are beside us. Come into this space mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship together. Will you join me in the words for lighting our chalice, please? This light we kindle is set in the lamp of history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it boldly to a new generation. Let's join in singing. Our first hymn is As Tranquil Streams. The words will be projected, and it's 145 in the gray hymnal if you would like to follow along.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Gazing around the congregation, I note that we don't have any children, right? Am I missing anybody? I know we have childlike, but that's a whole different thing. So I'm going to teach you guys something. Do you have a slide, Gary? Awesome. Okay. So this is a chalice lighting or an affirmation that we do with hand motions. So y'all get to learn some hand motions to go along with this. this is how it goes. So we'll start with, we are Unitarian Universalists, and what I want you to do is to make the sign language for you, right? This is what sign language for you does. So Unitarian Universalists. So, and then we say, so this is, we are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. Together, we care for our earth. Oh, somebody, you know this one, huh? Oh, get out. Together we care for our earth. And now, this may be a little controversial, but I want you to hold hands, right? You can do this. It's okay. You can drop your arms. Yeah, it's okay. So reach out and hold hands, and we say, and we work for friendship and peace in our world. So, all right, let's do that all together. So, we are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. Together we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace. Well done. Shall we just go ahead and sing it because we do? I think we should.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
You finished? We pause now for a time of generosity and to receive an offering today which goes to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul of East Jefferson County. I invite John Hayes to come forward and tell us about the services that the Society provides here. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jan. So I was telling John that this is my third trip to Quimper Unitarian over the past decade or so, and I've always felt very welcome here. So thank you for inviting me here again and for the privilege of your time. I'm John Hayes. I'm the interim president of St. Vincent de Paul of East Jefferson County, and I feel a kindred spirit with all of you in that we share a passion for social justice issues. A recent example of that happened a couple months ago. I was at a meeting at the Jefferson County Immigrants' Rights Advocates Office, which we call JSIRA, and I heard that's pronounced correctly. But we were getting an update and guidance on the new enforcement policies, immigration enforcement policies, and there were probably, I would say, 20 or so people there. I was the only one from St. Vincent or St. Mary's, but I think there were at least 6 of the Unitarians there. Maybe more, so anyway, thanks for your passion. So locally, we're an all-volunteer organization that was founded in 2005 at the urging of a good friend of mine, Father John Topol, who was the Jesuit pastor of St. Mary's at that time. He's now retired, living in California, doing well. I stay in touch with him. Like the American Unitarian Association, we're almost 200 years old. So we were founded in 1833 in Paris by a young French student named Frederick Ozanam. He was inspired by the work of St. Vincent de Paul, and because St. Vincent worked a couple centuries earlier with the poor, and he was in France, and so Frederick named the society in honor of him. Today there are over 800,000 St. Vincent people nationwide, and there's 90,000 in the U.S. where our operations began in 1845. So what do? So here we go out and meet with people in pairs, and we provide direct, timely assistance to people who we call community members in need, or our neighbors. We serve people from ages 18 to 80 plus. We
including the homeless, which is not a huge part, 5 to 10%, but minimum wage workers, single moms, couples, families, and more seniors, unfortunately, nowadays, as things are getting expensive. So typical assistance we provide are food, gas, rent, although with the high cost of rents around here, it's, we can really help with people with Section 8 or government subsidized housing, but we try. Utilities, a lot of utilities, electric, water, propane, firewood. We're the only group that provides laundry vouchers nowadays. The public health used to do it, but they don't do it anymore. Driver's license and IDs, which are key to try to find work, car tabs, auto repairs, work clothes and boots, and mobile phones, which if you don't have a mobile phone nowadays, you really can't find work or medical appointments or anything like that. So, and we meet people in pairs, and we meet people individually. So we try to maintain very strict confidence, and we work at the Red Cross right now in Port Townsend on Tuesdays, and the Tri-Area Community Center in Chimicum on Wednesdays. And we meet with people at other places if they can't make it to either of those. So we try hard to take care of the folks. And we get, 35 to 50 calls a week for help. So it's busy. So for the last fiscal year, which for us was October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, we provided about $200,000 in direct assistance. Approximate breakdown of that spending, half of it was groceries and gas, some prescription drugs in there, 25% utilities, 10% rent, 5% auto repairs and fees, 8 to 9% in other spending like work clothes, booze, things like that. And our overhead last year was 1.3%, so we're all volunteers. So what it means is that 98 or 99 cents of every dollar we take in goes right back out to the local community. And these numbers and more, we have an informational website, and I'll pass that out when we meet after the service. Our funding, our spending is really based on what we take in. During COVID times, we did get some government funding, and it was wonderful, and the extra food stamp benefits. But that's long gone, sadly. So we rely basically on a second collection once every month from St. Mary's. Grants from various sources, and we have a couple people pursuing grants at all times at various places, and the generosity of individual donors. So we're really blessed. Over the years, we were fortunate to build a number of partnerships with local organizations, including, of course, St. Mary's, but OLICAP we work with a lot, Dove House, Jasira, Jefferson PUD, Jefferson Healthcare, the Community Foundation, First Fed, Olympic Communities of Health, Veterans Assistance Programs, there's a couple out there, Discovery Behavioral Health, the YMCA, Red Cross, the City of Port Townsend, and many more. So we have a lot of resources we can point people to. So we do provide the tangible assistance, but I think that equally as important is we are kind of a friendly, non-judgmental ear for people that whose neighbors, whose voices are rarely heard. We take time to listen and get to know our neighbors and their needs and show them that there are people who actually care out there, and we hope that gives them hope. We also advocate on behalf of our neighbors and point them to other potential local resources. A recent story, we had a young man in addiction recovery referred to us. He was 3 months sober, getting back to work, and he asked us to help him get into a sober group home, which just opened in Port Townsend. I wasn't even aware of this until a month ago, but good thing. He wanted to obviously stay sober, and he wanted to help us cover a deposit and first month rent so we can get in there. So we partnered with First Presbyterian Church in this matter to do that, and he's there. So hopefully we can stay on that path. That's all we can hope for. So we have a lot of sad stories in our everyday work, but there are many great stories like that one too. So we have a lot of uplifting experiences as well. And the neighbors are so grateful and thankful. So looking ahead, there's going to be challenging times for all the nonprofits out there. the budget bill passed this week by the House is really going to hurt people. Cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and other human programs. In other words, the demand for assistance is going to be from us, and everywhere else is going to be rising while funds are decreasing, government funds are decreasing. A local example of that has been cut is the LIHEAP program. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it stands for the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And it's a program that's been around since the 1980s, and it's going to be gone if the budget passes. So it offers assistance to low-income people for higher heating bills in the winter. And depending on the number of people in the home and its size, a $100,000 credit goes directly into their utility accounts. So for us, when a neighbor calls for help with a utility bill, one of the first questions we ask, are you enrolled in the LIHEAP program? And most of them are. So we know that. And locally, OLICAP manages the process of that program and makes the payments to PUD. That's an FYI. But so if starting next winter, if LIHEAP is truly gone, we'll be getting larger requests for assistance, and I hope people don't freeze. But as in the past, past decades, or 2 decades we've been in operation, we adapt and just do the best we can to serve our neighbors. In closing on this Memorial Day weekend, I'd like to thank any veterans or family members here today for their service, and also remember the more than 1 million Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice. As I mentioned, I'll be available after the service for questions and fellowship. I'll end with a quote with Richard Albert, who probably some of you know as Ram Dass, that my good friend, colleague, and mentor John Cantlin, former president of St. Vincent, likes to say. And that's, we're all just walking each other home. So thank you. Wishing you peace and blessings.
Thank you. Please join me in our offering words. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Always a pleasure to have Bob here providing music. I'm going to make a recommendation that we hold our applause until the end of the service and then just roar at him. I mean, not roar at him, but like get enthusiastic. I don't have to tell you. We set aside time each week to share the joys and sorrows of our lives. We recognize that our personal joys and sorrows are only a small fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And so we'll place 2 stones this week. The first stone thinking in particular of those named and unnamed who have died in service to our country. And a second stone recognizing the anniversary of the death of George Floyd and the consequences of that time. Within the congregation, a candle remembering Nancy Sendler on her birthday. Nancy, a member of QUUF, died around this time last year. A candle for member Larry Dennison, whose brother Terry died early this week. And a stone for Henry Amick to mark the decade since the passing of his relative Robert, a lapidary enthusiast, he notes. And we place a final stone holding these joys and sorrows in our hearts, as well as those that are held silently within our hearts. Thank you. I invite you to come into a time of quiet and reflection together and to settle in. Maybe let your shoulders roll back a little bit. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. Take a few deep breaths. Center and slow. Pause and just breathe. Let the moments flow by, no need to fuss or worry. Pause and just breathe. Release the tensions in your body. Relax your mind. Let go of lists and tasks. Pause and just breathe. Hear and feel your breath. Feel your heart as it beats steadily within. Touch peace, if only for a moment here in this quiet. As the stillness deepens around us, allow that peacefulness to spread throughout your body. Pause and just breathe. In this stillness, let go of that which has weighted you down. Open in forgiveness. Open in love. Surrender what must be given away. And in the peace of this moment, I invite you to speak softly to yourself an intention. Direct your heart to what you love and want to embody. Allow that to fall on you, light mist that touches all. Pause and just breathe. Breathe peace. Breathe forgiveness. Breathe love. So may it be. Amen. I have a single reading for you this morning, and it's a little long, and it comes from Earl Morse Wilbur's encyclopedic history of Unitarianism. It's not the whole thing, but this is them. And he is writing about the beginnings of Unitarianism in the United States. He says, the first tentative step toward organization was taken by ministers who gathered in Boston to hear the election sermon and attend their anniversaries, as ministers of the state were then accustomed to do. According to arrangements made previously, therefore, the liberal ministers on the evening of May 30th, 1820, met in very large numbers in Berry Street, in the new vestry of the Federal Street Church. An address was delivered by William Ellery Channing, who spoke of the objects that had brought them together and their need as liberals for mutual aid and support. They needed a common bond of union and an opportunity for conference, which they had lacked hitherto, to the end of nourishing practical religion and a Christian spirit, as well as promoting their own distinctive views. At the next year's meeting, a step toward practical activity was voted to consider further the extension of their religious publications. A full dozen of the recent graduates of Harvard Divinity School led in the movement to organize the American Unitarian Association. They realized if they were to do anything to spread their faith beyond its present limits, they must unite and organize for the purpose. Whereas if they were to refrain from this, they would be yielding the field to orthodoxy without a struggle, giving way meekly before views that they believed not only untrue, but harmful. Their first step, taken in 1824 at a meeting of a club of 30 or 40 leading Boston Unitarians called the Anonymous Association. I have no idea why it was called that. The Anonymous Association, who were interested in promoting the progress of liberal Christianity. They met the following year, and it was unanimously voted, quote, that it is expedient to form a new society called the American Unitarian Association. The next morning, therefore, May 25th, 1825, a constitution was adopted for an association to, quote, diffuse the knowledge and promote the interests of pure Christianity, and an able board of officers was chosen. There ends our reading for today. I think I have mentioned before that history was never really a favorite subject of mine in school, college, graduate school. In fact, the professor who taught Unitarian Universalist history at my seminary, after a few classes, recommended that I get a rather lengthy book that he suggested about the development of Western civilization in order to catch up with my classmates. And if memory serves, and I believe it does, I dropped off before the first 100 pages, just totally fell asleep, and eventually gave the book away. I don't think I read more than 100 pages max. History, not my thing at all. And then when my husband Peter and I got together, I was stunned by his near encyclopedic stores of data and dates and events and all of that. The other thing that was really startling was that if there was an area of interest that was his particular favorite, it was Civil War. The fact that my father was also a Civil War enthusiast was a little spooky. Just noting. And it wasn't until I was preparing to go visit a small village in Romania, and in particular this village that I was visiting was in the Transylvania region. At that point, I pulled out my copies of Earl Morse Wilbur's two-part History of Unitarianism, and I finally got what all the fuss was all about. I was writing the sermon that I would offer to the congregation to tell them about why we were going to Transylvania and about our partner church there in Felšerakos. And I knew I needed to get more of the history before I got there. So there I am sitting in my study reading through this book, and about every, 8-10 minutes, I was walking out into the living room to say to Peter, "Did you know?" And just exclaiming my amazement at what our forebears there had gone through and the historic adoption of Unitarianism as the state religion under King John Sigismund. Peter was both deeply amused and pleased. Wilbur, who we heard from earlier, is the one who assessed that Unitarianism was characterized most clearly by freedom, reason, and tolerance. His history is shaped around those ideas, connecting us to movements across the world then and since. As time has passed, I've gotten only more enchanted with our history. This week, as I began to sift through my library as we prepare to move and I prepare to retire, I am piling up the books that I'm going to be giving away to my colleagues who are starting out in ministry. And one of the first decisions I made was that I cannot give up these 2 books. It's no longer in print, and so it is a valuable commodity, but my attachment to the history is too great for me to let it go yet. If you're interested, and I do realize that this is probably unlikely, you can find the entire text of these 2 books at the Starking for Ministry Seminary on their website. The entire text of these 2 books. And let me tell you, small print. It's a lot of words. And we're right in the middle of one of the most important moments in the history of Unitarianism, the founding of the American Unitarian Association on this day in 1825. And by an amazing coincidence, and it really is completely coincidental, the British Unitarians also created their own organization on this day in 1825. Totally, I mean, it's like the hand of God, right? Or, of whatever greater miracle there is. Now, you may know that as this continent was being settled by Europeans, that the earliest settlers of what we call New England were religious refugees who were escaping England, where they could not practice their religion as they understood it. They followed the practices that they knew in their country of origin, and as villages formed, they came together to build a church on the town green. There was no overarching organization, just the people in the towns who would come together for worship on Sundays. And the worship was simple, no elaborate rituals, no fancy dress for the preacher, just a gathering of the faithful and the speaking of truth as it was understood by the speaker. They founded Harvard to train their ministers in what they needed to know. They lived in peace with their neighbors who didn't take part or believed something different. But over time, theological disputes arose, of course. Some ministers and professors began to explore new scholarship about the Bible that pointed out that there are different voices in the text. Some sections, for example, used the word Yahweh for God. Some were recitations of rules and laws. These are distinct voices. We now talk about this as source criticism, which is a literary practice. To modern ears, this may not seem like a big deal, but in the 19th century, it was straight-on fighting words for those who believed in the inerrancy and single source of the Bible. Now, I tell you this rather esoteric bit of our history to note that as a movement across time, we have always valued intellectual adventure and the search for truth. But not only that, at our best, we are open to changing what we believe, to be open to new ideas and perspectives that suggest a different way of understanding. Our religious forebears, for example, adopted evolution when it was still deeply controversial. And while our reliance on thinking is sometimes our downfall, we sometimes miss the nuances of emotional intelligence and the values of metaphor and intuition. It still is central to our way of being in the world and has defined our religious movement over the 200 years we've been around. Now, again, just diving into the history a little, one of the practices, the regular practices in those early days of Unitarianism, or early days in the colonies, was exchanging pulpits. Ministers would agree to go preach at each other's churches on a regular basis, just swapping around. And I'll mention one that William Ellery Channing preached, ran to around 13,000 words. Mine are usually in the 1,500 range, just to give you an idea of how many words that is. And because of this, because ministers preached that long, I suspect they did it just so that they wouldn't have to write the whole dang thing every week. Whatever the cause was, whatever had them do this, it was an established practice for ministers to preach in each other's congregations on a routine basis. But as liberal ministers continued to explore new ways to explore and understand and study the scriptures, the more conservative ministers began to refuse to exchange with them, and indeed began to preach sermons attacking the others' preaching as blasphemous and calling them Unitarians as an attack. In 1819, Channing, one of our big leaders, one of our very famous guys, claimed the name Unitarian and articulated what it meant to be one of the liberal leaders of the day at the ordination of Jared Sparks in Baltimore. As you heard in our reading this morning, the following year, the liberal ministers began to meet routinely, and 5 years later met to create the American Unitarian Association. Now, just to check, still awake, still with me? Let me add a footnote here. It was also in May of 1961 that the Unitarians and Universalists joined together to make the Unitarian Universalist Association. So May is a big day for us, big month for us. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter at all, right? Indeed, if you, like me, have found history snore-worthy, and I know you're out there, I know you're my people too, still, even so, or if you wonder if it makes any difference at all to have heard this information, I want to say declaratively and positively that what we do here and in UU congregations across the U.S. is continue to hold those values of and practices of our forebears, to be intellectually curious, to explore how it is that we live well in the world, to be pragmatic about what it means to believe something. I don't know that it's articulated anywhere as part of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist, but my best description of what makes a belief true is the impact that it has on how you live your life in the world. What makes a belief true is how it has impact on how you live in the world. My belief, the principle that we have, that we are all interconnected, guides me towards compassion and care, knowing that what harms my fellow humans harms me as well. That same principle helps me to be aware of what impact my actions have, not only on humans, but on that whole wide web of life that upholds us. That our Universalist heritage tells us the deepest truth and value in our life is that of love, means that it needs to be at the center of all we say and all we do. Love at the center also reminds us that when we fail at living up to those high standards, as we all do, we are still embraced and worthy and held, even in our frail and faulty love. So let's celebrate, friends. Celebrate with me this glorious anniversary, this marker of our gratitude for those who have come before us and who have held this faith, who have sustained it over 2 centuries. And let us take courage and hope from them to sustain us in these difficult days ahead. So may it be. Amen. Our closing song is number 1014, Answering the Call of Love. It's in the Teal hymn book. Yep, that's the one. Let's join in singing. Our closing words by Gary Kowalski. And now may the blessings of life be upon us and upon this congregation. May the memories we gather here give us hope for the future. May the love that we share bring strength and joy to our hearts, and the peace of this community be with us until we are together again. So may it be. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.